The recurring general journal also includes a very interesting allocation function, and I will show you a couple of examples. So I'm still working in the same recurring general journal. I can just leave these lines as they are, and I will create a new line. And in this case, I will use variable. So we already made an example with fixed, so let's make one with variable. So I will use the same date formula. There we go. Then March 31st as posting date. And my example here is the posting of a depreciation. So when I would like to allocate the depreciation expense to several departments. So first of all, I will enter the account. And here in this example, it's very important that I start with the credit account, so the balance sheet account, because what you would like to allocate is of course the expense. So an allocation is done by using the balancing account function, as I will show you. So, and again, that's why it's very important to start with the balance sheet account. So let me look up the depreciation. There we go, of equipment, so the accumulated depreciation. I will enter an amount which in this case should be a credit amount, like for example 18,900, so not very important. And then I can go to the allocated amount field. So, and here I can click on the flow field, and this will open the allocation page. So, and remember, that's why I just said it's very important that we're now going to allocate the expense. And that's why I'm not entering the expense here, because it's the balancing account that you're allocating. So let me do this. So this is my allocation page. And now I can start with the depreciation expense account. So let me look it up. So there we go, depreciation equipment. And what you can do is enter a percentage. And what I would like to do now, like I just said, is allocate a certain percentage to each department. So I will go to the department code field. So in here you can see the departments. So, and this may look a bit different than the departments that you have, but that's something I will explain in my next example. So I will use the departments administration, production and sales, which you also have. So I will start with administration, and I would like to allocate, for example, 20% of the depreciation expenses to the administration department. So next I will use the same account for the second line, but now of course another dimension. So in this case, let's go for the production department. So, and the production department will get 70%. And then the remaining 10% is allocated to the sales department. So 10. There we go. So 100% has been allocated to these different departments. So now I can escape and go back to the recurring general journal, and I can simply post it. So let's do this. Click on post. And there you go. Let's quickly check the result. And I will do this again by going to the GL registers. So let's check the first one. And there you can see now that I have 4 lines. So there's the balance sheet account with a credit amount. And then based on the percentages I've used, you can see these different amounts. And if you would, here it is, so I don't have to edit. So here you can see the department code, and you can see that based on the percentage, an amount has been allocated to each department, which means in this example that each department now takes part in the depreciation expenses. All right. Okay, that's the first example, but then the second example, also very interesting, because what companies sometimes want to do is not allocate the full amount on a GL account, but only the amounts that are posted on a certain dimension. Now, I've prepared an example, and before making the example here in the recurring general journal, let me show you my preparation. And I will go to dimensions first. And like you could already see, I've updated the department dimensions. So I've created a few additional dimension values. So, and the scenario here is that my demo company Cronus has several business units, in this case building and HR, and then the departments. Now at the end, the expenses should be allocated to the departments. But when posting the expenses, like for example purchase invoices and so on, they will post the expense to a business unit because that's easier, that's more simple, that's faster, and so on. And then at the end of the month, they will use the recurring general journals to allocate expenses from a business unit to these departments. So that's basically my scenario. All right. Now I also prepared some general ledger entries. So let me go to the chart of accounts. And let's check the utilities expense account. And then the net change. So here you can see a few entries. So there are entries posted directly to the departments like production, sales, administration. But then there's also an entry posted to the business unit building of 1,000. And now I would like to allocate the 1,000 based on a percentage to each of these departments. So that's what I would like to do. And that's something that is also possible with the recurring general journals. So now I will do this by creating a new line. And in this case, I will use the method balance by dimension. So very important. This is one of the new methods in the recurring general journal. So balance by dimension. There we go. Let's stick to the same date filter. So everything at the end of the month. Then of course I will return to March. I will enter the GL account, which is utility expenses. All right. And now you can already see here the notification. What I need to do now is set the dimension filters. So now I can set a filter of dimensions based on which the program should allocate to other dimensions or other GL accounts. Now that's something that you can do here by clicking on a notification, or you can also just click here on line and then go to set dimension filter. Now you can do this very detailed because you can create a complete set of dimensions. So for example, the business unit should be building, the area should be Europe, for example, and so on. So you can create a complete set that the system should take into account. Now in this case, I will keep it simple. So I will use department, and like I just showed you on the GL entries, I would like to allocate the 1,000 that has been posted on the building business unit. So I will select here building. There we go. Again, this is enough for my example, but you can create a second, a third, a fourth line, and so on if necessary. But for this example, I only need this. So now the dimension filter is set. So now the program knows which amounts to look at. Next, I will go to my allocated amount field. I will not enter an amount, very important in this scenario. You don't enter an amount because basically what you're saying is that you want to allocate the full amount based on the dimension set filter I just entered. You see, so the system knows which amount to allocate. You don't need to enter it. So this means that I can go directly to the allocated amount page. And here I can now, just as my previous example, start entering the different lines. So I will first search for the utilities expense account. Then I will enter the department code. And this is now the allocation key I would like to apply. So how much of the utilities expenses should be allocated to the administration department So it's basically the same example. So I will use 30%. Then the second line, same account, but different departments. So in this case, production, and let's give production the highest percentage because they're using most of the utilities. And then finally, we have the sales department, and they will get the remaining 10%. All right, so there we go. So this part is very similar to the first example, but the main difference, or the most important difference in this case, is that not the full amount will be allocated of this utilities expense account, but only the amounts of the business unit building. Let me show you this. I will click here on post. Yes. So everything is posted, and let's check now the results. So I will first go to the GL registers, and let's go to the general ledger entries. And there we go. So here you can see that only 1,000 has been allocated. So this is not the total balance of the GL account, but it's the total balance by dimension of this GL account. And again, the only dimension I've used here is the building dimension. So now the 1,000 has been allocated based on the allocation percentage in my example. So and this means that if we go to the chart of accounts, you can see there the same results. So I will search for the utilities expense account, and let's check the net change. So and again, the net change basically hasn't changed, so it's still the same because everything has been allocated within the same account. But now if you would make the total of the building business unit, there's an amount of 0 left because 1,000 minus 1,000, and then based on the allocation, these expenses have been added to each department. So that's the result of using the dimensions in the allocation.